And not much progress from the North Korean side as it has rolled out talks of any kind with the U.S. Choi Sun-hee, the regime's Director General for North American Affairs, that is, says Pyongyang will not be giving up its nuclear weapons and instead said Washington needs to accept North Korea as a nuclear state. Won Jung-hwan has the details.
North Korean diplomat Choi Sun-hee was speaking Saturday in a closed-door session at a conference on non-proliferation in Moscow. She reportedly said Pyongyang will not respond to any proposal for negotiations such as the six-party nuclear talks until the U.S. ends what she called its hostile policy towards Pyongyang. According to an anonymous participant at the session, Choi said the North is living under constant threat from the U.S. and that processing nuclear weapons is a matter of life and death for the reclusive state. She added that those threats from the US have made Pyongyang only more certain that it needs nuclear weapons to defend itself, and concluded that Washington has no choice but to accept that North Korea is a nuclear state. Choi is North Korea's Director General for North American Affairs, and her remarks on Saturday are in line with those she made at another meeting on Friday, when she delivered a statement to the press.
DPRK's nuclear weapons are non-negotiable unless the U.S. is prepared to coexist with the nuclear DPRK, because this is the only way to ensure lasting peace on the Korean Peninsula and the stability and security in the Northeast Asia.
South Korea's deputy nuclear envoy was also at the conference, as well as several former U.S. officials, prompting speculation that there could be interaction of some kind with Choi. Seoul's Yonhap News reports that although she is said to have greeted the South Korean diplomat informally, no formal meeting was arranged.
Press statement by Kim Yo Jong, First Vice Department Director of the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of Korea. The 10th of July, 2020. I also have the feeling that the US may have a dark design to return to at least something like the Hanoi negotiation conditions. At this point of time, when we look back on the early 2019, the US had the possibility to first disable our nuclear mainstay and mess up our long-term nuclear program by putting on airs of partially lifting sanctions. It was a time when we were making a great venture at all risks to break the chains of sanctions and promote our people's livelihood at the earliest time possible, despite the fact that the bargaining terms were not in our favor. When the DPRK-US summit talks was held in Panmunjom on the 30th of June, 2019, Comrade Chairman defined his clear position to the US President, who preached North Korea's bright economic prospects and economic aid and asked for further denuclearization measures as a prerequisite, that we shall never barter our system, the safety and future of our people for the likes of lifting of sanctions of no guarantee in the hope for the glamorous transformation and the realization of our dreams of rapid economic prosperity. He also made it clear that the sufferings imposed upon us by the US have now turned into the hatred for the US. And this hatred would drive us to break through the blockade of persistent sanctions led by the US and to live our own way by our own efforts. From that time on, we completely ruled out the issue of lifting sanctions from the agenda of negotiations with the US. I believe that the previous theme of the DPRK-US negotiations, that is, denuclearization measures versus lifting of sanctions, should be changed into a formula of withdrawal of hostility versus resumption of DPRK-US negotiations. We are fully capable of living under any sanctions, so there is no reason for us to be driven by the US. I hope that the US, at this moment in time, does not harbor such a pipe dream as trying to restrike a bargain which was put on the negotiations table at the Hanoi summit talks. which entails the partial lifting of sanctions versus the permanent dismantlement of large-scale nuclear facilities like the ones in Pyongyang, the central nerve of our nuclear development. We must develop a long-term plan to cope with and contain long-term threats coming from the US and safeguard our national interests and sovereignty under such conditions. We should strengthen and steadily increase our practical capabilities. The US attempt to resume the DPRK-US denuclearization negotiations is now underway, being pressed by the time, and it is not an issue wanted by us or pressed by the time. There is no need for us to sit across with the US right now, who is obsessed with the thoughts on what and how it can get more from us over the negotiating table. And I think it is the issue to be decided when the major changes are made in the attitude of the US. It would be easier and more favorable for the US to rack its brains to make our nukes no threat to the US, rather than racking it to dispossess our nukes. We do not have the slightest intention to pose a threat to the US, and Comrade Chairman has already made it clear to President Trump. Everything will go smoothly if they leave us alone and make no provocation on us. We would like to make it clear that it does not necessarily mean the denuclearization is not possible. But what we mean is that it is not possible at this point of time. I remind the US that the denuclearization on the Korean peninsula can be realized only when there are major changes made on the other side, that is the irreversible simultaneous major steps to be taken in parallel with our actions. I have to point out clearly that it does not mean the lifting of sanctions when we refer to major changes from the other side. I personally did not want to write this kind of statement towards Americans, if not towards South Korea. Last but not the least, I would like to give my impression on the celebrations for the US Independence Day that I've seen on TV a few days ago. I have got the permission from Comrade Chairman to personally obtain, for sure, the DVD of the celebrations for the Independence Day in the future, if possible. Comrade Chairman has entrusted me with conveying his wishes to President Trump that he would certainly achieve great successes in his work.